So this project, it aimed to improve construction workers' safety during evacuations on high-rise building sites. So it characterised their performance and it characterised their behaviour during an evacuation. So if you think about it, a construction site's very dynamic. The layout, the interconnections during the phases, they're constantly changing. So if you're anything like me, you can be walking past a construction site one day and then it's very different a few days later. And so the evacuation plan, it has to reflect that. It has to adapt and reflect the changes, and the plans have to be communicated to workers. But the difficulty is, more often than not, the evacuation drills, they're announced, so workers have a heads up. They know that there is a drill and it's just a practice. So it's difficult to actually test the workers' knowledge. It's difficult to test the effectiveness of the training. It's difficult to test how effective the procedures are that's in place. And so what this research looked to do was to do full-scale trials, evacuation trials, and there were 4 of them. They also did 5 worker walking speed experiments where they looked at how, different surfaces on a construction, typically on a construction site, and the response times for those. It looked at temporary ladders and stairs, how workers responded in terms of their timings during those scenarios, and they also did a questionnaire survey to find out a lot more. So there was a number of findings. A few that comes to mind is the fact that 4/5 of construction workers, they knew that they needed to evacuate immediately from the site, but only 49% actually did evacuate immediately. So that shows that that they have the head knowledge, generally speaking, but actually carrying out what they should in practice it's often a different story. Another key finding was the fact that many of the workers, they had the perception that the employers wanted them to actually finish the task before they evacuated, and that's something that they felt was more important from the employer than themselves. And so there seems to be some mixed messages in terms of the information that they're receiving and their perception. So it could be that there's some cultural issues that needs to be challenged really on a construction site. Another is that a third of workers, they were able to find their way and find the exit from the evacuation or during the evacuation. However, about 21% actually had to use and look at the signs. So it just shows the importance of having clear signage and having up-to-date signage around the construction site. And then another is that at least 43% of workers, they needed intervention from other staff before they evacuated. So it kind of shows how the importance of having assertive supervisors around to make sure that they do evacuate if they need to. So there was a lot of findings from this research. So one of the things that we've done is we've produced some infographics to help present the findings in a more easily and presentable way. So I think that the impact is that because this is like one of the first in its kind in terms of having quantifiable data that's based on a realistic evacuation from a high-rise building construction site. We've got good data that we can rely on to help support a simulation, building evacuation simulation tool, and that tool, as well as the data itself, can help support health and safety practitioners when they're planning for an evacuation. It can also help regulators as well as designers. People can find out more about the research at the 2019 IOSH conference. Ed Galia, who's the lead researcher, he'll be doing a presentation on the research and giving a lot more detail.